This is All of It. I'm Allison Stewart, live from the WNYC studios in Soho. Thank you for sharing part of your day with us. I'm grateful that you're here. Stay dry. Stay tuned to WNYC for weather updates. It's going to be a very rainy day. Quick preview for tomorrow's show because it's big. Colson Whitehead will be here to talk about his new novel, Cool Machine. And when I say new, I mean the publication date is tomorrow. Cool Machine is the conclusion to his Harlem trilogy. And in it, we see Ray Carney, the furniture salesman and occasional fence, take on one last crime in 1980s New York. That's coming up on the show tomorrow. Now let's get today's show started with the new musical, The Potluck. In 1979, 5 labor organizers were killed by members of the KKK and the American Nazi Party during a rally in Greensboro, North Carolina. The victims were Cesar Cauci, James Waller, William Evan Sampson, Sandra Neely Smith, and Michael Nathan. 1 year later, a child was born into a community forever changed by that tragedy and named in honor of 2 of those people. Cesar James Alvarez went on to become a playwright and a composer. That history became the foundation for Alvarez's new musical, The Potluck. Set in present day, the show follows a fictionalized version of Cesar, played by Anthony Alfaro, who is commissioned to create a musical about the Greensboro Massacre. As they struggle to tell the story responsibly, they grapple with memory, legacy, the challenge of honoring those who came before them, and Cesar needs the money. Part family drama, part musical meditation, The Potluck explores the enduring impact of political violence, the complexities of grief and healing, and the meaning of solidarity across generations. The Potluck is produced by Soho Rep and Intar and is now showing at the Peter J. Sharp Theater at 416 West 42nd Street. That's through August 2nd. Joining me now is playwright and composer Cesar James Alvarez. Nice to meet you.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Also with us is Anthony Alfaro, who plays Cesar in the production. Welcome, Anthony.
Hello. Thank you.
And also joining us is Barbara Walsh, who plays Cesar's mother. Barbara, welcome.
Hello. Happy to be here.
So this is a musical, Cesar, about writing a musical about a difficult subject. Why did a musical feel like the right form for this subject?
It's a great question because it's truly the wrong form in many ways. And as if you were to imagine a theater piece about the Greensboro Massacre, you wouldn't think, okay, let's write a musical. The funny thing is that I sort of stumbled into writing musicals as a composer and as a creator and storyteller. And it's sort of the story I've always known that I was going to have to tell. Mm-hmm. And this moment came in my life where someone gave me a commission and said, what are the stories that you're going to tell? And so I was just honest. And I said, this is one of them. And they said, yes, do that one. And I said, no, but that would mean not that one. And I got into this situation where I kind of knew I had to do something, and I needed to do something that was the most terrifying and painful thing that I could ever imagine doing. And I thought then, well, what is the point of art making if we're not going to confront these really scary and challenging things? And so I tried to apply my art practice to this story. And what I discovered was that maybe this event was what brought me into that art practice in the first place. And the experience of opening this Pandora's box forever changed me and my art practice. And that's what's on stage right now, is a real story of being broken open by facing something that seems unfaceable.
So, Anthony, you're in one of my favorite bands.
Oh,
Tony and the Kiki.
Am I?
Yes, I saw it on stage. I was like, that guy's got a twin, or I went
Oh my
to my Instagram during an intermission. Amazing.
Oh, thank you.
We'll talk about it another time.
Yes.
How did you come to this role?
Well, let me see. So I had been working as an actor, and mainly a musical theater actor, for a while, but then the pandemic happened and sort of created like a clearing of what if I never do this again. So that's how I started my band, and I kind of was full steam ahead with that and trying to make that my artistic practice. And in the closing of loops of former things, I came across a listing for a new musical. And in the description was something about a dad with mom energy, and, maybe like slightly witchy, non-binary, 30s, and I was like, that sounds like
That's right on.
who can sing? And I was like, I know that I'm trying to go in a different direction now, but this seems like kind of hard to pass
for
up.
you.
So even though Cesar and I are very different people, there we have so many weird connections and intersections of who we are and things like that. So I just kind of read that, and I think I sent Cesar a message on Instagram. I was like, I see this.
And immediately, videos of Anthony were just pinging around the creative team, and we were like, wait, this person's amazing. This would be incredible. And we haven't looked back.
Barbara, you are a Tony-nominated actress.
Yeah.
What was unique to you about the Potluck?
Okay, I'm in the kitchen 2022 listening to material that was just sent to me. Luminosity was the first thing I heard, a song that was cut from the show, and I'm still angry about it, but that's okay. I was kind of blown away by that, everything about it, and then I listened to the second song, the second song in the offer, which was The Myth, which would have been my song, and my husband walks in the kitchen, and we're both listening, and he says, would this be your song? And I went, yeah. And he just said, you have to do it. I said, no kidding, I'm going to do it. So I just said yes right away. And yeah, I mean, it's incredibly different from a formulaic musical, which I have done, and some, not all, formulaic, like South Pacific. The form has been broken here and there in various things I've done, but not like this. And I was just from that first reading that we did and listening to the whole piece, and so many of those people are with us now, which I love. That's 2022. And it gave me shivers. It made me weep constantly. I mean, not, dramatically, but just I was so touched and deeply moved by the Mandela song, for instance, and so many, and the five people who died, the presence that I'm so glad that's been more developed over the years, because I think it balances beautifully what we're putting on now, and it takes my breath away. I have shivers just thinking about this show and the gift of being able to do it in a room with these people, with all of Cesar's genius, and Sarah, our director, incredible collaborator for you. And it's a gift. I mean, nothing like it.
Cesar, how did the script for this show evolve from when you originally realized I have to do this to what we see on stage today?
Well, when you go to the show, the story is actually... you see me, or my character played by Anthony, actually kind of crashing into this assignment, which is actually kind of uncomfortable and excruciating, which was, how in the heck am I going to write a musical about this painful, terrible catastrophe that happened to my family and that I grew up inside of? And so what I do is I try a lot of different tactics. And at a certain point, what I realized is that I actually have to deal with the spiritual side of this, which is that I'm trying to tell the story of these five folks who are no longer with us, and how do you talk to the invisible world? And that actually happened, which is that in the process of writing the musical, I actually went through this transformation where I turned my artistic practice away from something that was more kind of musical and experimental and intellectual into something that was actually spiritual. And when I went through this spiritual process of actually trying to talk to these folks, they talked back, and it actually shattered the way that I was thinking about the story, the way that I was thinking about myself as a human and as an artist. And I kind of never was the same. And so I was trying to figure out, in the context of writing a script to a musical, how do I tell that story? And what does that story say about the catastrophe? And what does it say about the possibility of our form, which is musical theater, which is such a beloved and derided form. And I find musical theater to be at its highest an opportunity for musical togetherness and ritual togetherness that actually allows us to look at the scariest things. And all my favorite musicals have very strange, dark, and
You mentioned that in the
scary
show,
things.
right?
Yeah, at the center of them. And I think by the end of the show, I'm trying to unveil this transformation. And so the question, how did it change over the course of it, is kind of mapped out in the show, which is by the end of the show, I'm actually a different person.
I was curious, Anthony, what did you want to know from Cesar to create the character of Cesar?
I think something that has come up from kind of when we started it to now is sort of around like the spectrum of queerness and the spectrum of gender and how our upbringing affects that. I think because of who I am and my lived experience and who my parents were and what my interests are, I have sort of a different entry point to my queerness than Cesar does. And I think that the thing is that this whole story is for this character, there is this, what am I? I'm not, I don't fit into perceived boxes. Whereas I feel like Anthony kind of does fit into some of those boxes, right? Of being non-binary or being, androgynous or, exploring both genders. So kind of getting to know where, because also meeting Cesar had already been transformed through this. So I was kind of like, well, who were you when you started this? Who is this person giving this monologue? What is it like to have 3 kids and a wife and then to be like, wait, I'm this, So that was a huge thing. And then also Cesar is incredibly brilliant and intellectual and an academic, and that was kind of always something that I'm a showgirl. So I don't really I don't know that I use words like Barbie's like polemical and the injury of the event and things like that. I'm more like yeah, where do you want me to stand and what note am I singing, am I smiling, am I happy, am I sad, whatever, but so to kind of like explore that and to own that and to but also I just want to say that it's a kind of braininess that is also has a sort of puppy dog energy around it and a gentleness and a kind of playful thing of teaching and learning at the same time. So that was kind of that's really fun to tap into.
Barbara, you're portraying a real person who's still alive.
Sally.
Yeah. Where did you begin your creation of being Caesar's mom?
Well, in all the readings I had, and the thing is about the piece, it's Brechtian in that it doesn't have that I'm singing, I'm talking, and now I've got to sing because it's been set up in the script, and now I have to sing. We don't have that here, which is fantastic. But a bit of a dilemma for an actor as well is finding the way in. And I've only recently, since we've been up and running, I've found a better way in and more specific way in based on the way. Let's see, the first lyric at the end of the first verse is, "There's a little boy and the ideas that imprison her." So that tells the tale, and then at the end there's a kid and the spirits that precondition her. And so everything in between, it had to be a moment-to-moment discovery or pursuit of understanding for her, because prior to that, in the scene with the parents and Cesar, Cesar has rewritten it, embellished it. So you see the fight, you see the friction in the relationship, and it's not hateful, it's all loving, but it is, distinct. And I think, how does a mother wrestle with that? Perhaps a homophobic mother at, given point. So she's on her own journey. And so for me, it was about, I've got to land that beat. And so that's what I'm finding actually more and more, which is it's not making a big deal to anyone else but me. It's like, Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Sarah, the director, helped me with that. And, it's subtle, actually.
We're talking about the new musical, the Potluck. We'll have more after a quick break. This is all of it. You're listening to All of It on WNYC. I'm Allison Stewart. A new musical grapples with the 1979 murder of 5 labor organizers by members of the KKK and the American Nazi Party. Playwright Cesar James Alvarez is here with me, alongside actors Anthony Alfaro and Barbara Walsh, to discuss The Potluck. The Potluck is now showing at the Peter J. Sharp Theater at 416 West 42nd Street. Cesar, in the first act, you sort of break the fourth wall. A video screen comes down and you invite the audience to watch a documentary about the massacre. It's about 7 minutes. Or you invite them to leave and participate in a ritual out in the lobby. Why did you decide to give the audience that chance?
Thank you for asking this. It's one of the most treasured parts about the piece, actually, is that we have this opportunity to share the creative work my mother did. Sally Alvarez created this documentary about the Greensboro Massacre in 1981. And while I was in utero, and she did her work to tell the story in her way from her perspective. And in that movie, she put in a really beautifully edited and complex portrait of the moment of the actual massacre. And we tried to do the piece without that, and we tried to do it with it.
Oh, interesting.
And those both had problems. And when we did it without it, a lot of people were having a hard time understanding what really happened. And when we did it with it, a lot of people get sent and they can't actually watch that type of footage. So what we did was we tried to create a pathway in the piece for you to see the piece and experience the story in 2 different ways. And I'm so excited about what we found, because it's actually, to me, using the form of theater, which is about togetherness, as a container to say, we're going to, as a community, deal with this thing that happened, and we're going to acknowledge that there might be different reasons that you need to deal with this differently. And how many times have we looked at a really, really horrifying video alone on our phone and had to deal alone with whatever that brought up? And instead, we're saying we're going to look at this video together, and then we're going to spend the next period of time thinking about it and processing it and figuring out what to do with it. And if you can't watch the video for whatever reason, we're going to give you another pathway, and then we're going to come together and all be part of it, which gets to actually a big point of the piece, which is about solidarity, which is about a potluck, which to me, a potluck is a participatory theater idea where everyone's going to come together and everyone's going to bring something, and everyone has a shared purpose, which is to eat. And as a result of that process, what's on the table is an assemblage of things you might not actually intentionally pair together, which is actually what happens in the piece. And there's all of these different ideas and aesthetics that are next to each other, because the idea and the form of the potluck is a proposal around solidarity. And when you have solidarity, when you have different groups of people coming together for shared goals, you have dissonance, you have difference, you have a bunch of things that you might not pair together being together. And that feels to me like a requirement for how we move forward as a society. And so the intention with that 2-track moment in the piece is exactly that. We're going to hold everybody and give people safe ways through this, and ways with different levels of intensity, so that by the end we can all stick together.
Anthony, we're going to play the song Lavender Shirt from the musical. Would you set this up for us?
Sure. In the way that it exists in the piece right now, it comes out of a moment where Cesar is communing with the spirits of the 5 and coming up against whether this is the right thing to do, how to commemorate the story, how to tell the story, is this a part of the revolution? And then something else that comes up is this idea of hatred, and how hatred is so built into this horrible event. And then one of the ghosts asks, do you have any hatred? And that sort of brings up, there is this hatred of self, of a piece of me, that is connected to all of this in whatever way through the cosmos. But and it's sort of, I see it as Cesar kind of peeling back the onion and just kind of like exploring like, what is this piece of me and where did it come from? And Cesar kind of revisits a memory, maybe the first time that they experienced gender euphoria. And I feel like the song is highlights the distance from that one beautiful moment to where they are now, and the distance that maybe they want to travel to get back to it.
This is Lavender Shirt from the Potluck.
Shadows spreading, I didn't care. They put up my hair. I could smell their shampoo when they did my eyes. What would happen if I came to the Marxist study group in drag? What does desire have to do with that? I may be a machine, but I'm a desiring one. I may be a machine, but I'm a desiring one. I'm gonna haunt the main street. I'm gonna haunt the mainstream. The children aren't the future.
That's Anthony
They
Alfaro
are
playing Cesar
now.
in The Potluck. It's interesting, Cesar. The words are projected on the screen throughout the whole show. Whose idea was that? It was ingenious myself.
That's
I
a
thought.
really important part of my process. I've been for the last really 4 or 5 years working very hard to project lyrics on all my shows, and it's a really intentional act around both accessibility but also access to the ideas inside of the show. And it's extremely hard on the performers because they are having to be compared to the script in every moment of the show. And it's so much work for them, muscular work, to wrench their performance away from the script. It's really hard. And also, I cannot tell you how many people have come up to me and said, thank you for projecting the lyrics, because I got to live in the story in a completely different way. People come up to me and they quote the lyrics because they got to live in the script. And also, there's a million moments, and we don't say this in rehearsal because we're trying so hard for everybody to nail it, but when the text does drift away from what's projected, you feel the liveness, and you feel the way in which the performers are working so hard to animate something that is just a piece of text, and that multi-layered, multi-dimensional quality is inherent and part of the storytelling and part of the work. And so I'm just really trying to create experiences which disrupt and this is Sarah Benson's really big frame for her work, is to create disruptive acts where we are interrupted from treating things casually or normally. And when the lyrics are projected, we're wrestling and reckoning the entire time with the distance between the authorship and the activation and the presence and this moment of togetherness. And I think it's really important. And I wish more theater performances would be captioned, because I feel like I miss so much sometimes, particularly if you're hearing something for the first time.
It also reminded me when I was a kid, this may show my age, but we used to get like the album notes and the album liner notes, and you used to read along when you heard a song.
Mitchell.
It was so great. It was like another dimension.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when I watch shows, I always put the captions on because I want to see what's written. I want to see what the words are and what the ideas were in the text, and so I honor you all both and all the actors in this show for the strength it takes to perform beside the lyric. It is hard.
Barbara, we're going to hear you sing next.
All right.
You mentioned the myth. What was it about this song? Earlier you said your husband said, you get to sing that?
Yeah.
What was it about the song that spoke to you?
Well, musically, it had this simplicity and yet it had a beautiful arc, a build musically. And the lyrics blow my mind. I mean, the poetry, it's very dense, and that can be a hindrance to get into, which it's never been a hindrance for me. But I wanted to make sure, and captions are not. Now I'm thinking, oh yeah, the captions, they're not looking at me anymore. Oh well, and I've worked so hard. No, kidding.
They're definitely looking
No, we're
at you.
looking at you.
No,
Okay.
you know what I mean. It's just it's the music and the lyrics so brilliantly put together. The arc of the whole piece, it's stunning. Yeah.
Let's listen to the myth from the Potluck.
There is a need for a simple solution. There is a need for someone to blame. There is a need for a way to determine if the thing that we need has a name. There is a stick held up by another stick. There is a bridge held up by a brick. There is a myth held up by another myth. And it's hard to mess with the myth you're held up with. There is a stick held high by a hand. There is a stage and a script and a band. There is a kid and the spirits that precondition her. Turn up the sound of the air conditioner. There is a stick held up by another stick. There is a bridge held up by a brick. There is a myth held up by another myth. And it's hard to mess with the myth you're held up with.
That is from the Potluck. In addition to being a musical, the Potluck is also a call to action. This is a question for each of you. Cesar, what action do you hope audiences take after seeing the show?
I want to just thread something out, which is that one of the discoveries in writing the show was that my parents' organization had a sort of party line which was homophobic, and they viewed queerness as a kind of distraction from the revolution. This wasn't something that my parents agreed with, but it was something that was really painful inside of the organization, and which I kind of, unbeknownst to me, sort of inherited this weird legacy where I understood that was part of the belief system inside of that moment. And I think I had to deal with that in the piece, and I had to deal with that in the relationship with my parents and in my own gender journey and identity. And I think, and so the reason I bring that up is because there's a question that can emerge at the end, which is like, this is supposed to be about these 5 martyrs. Why are you talking about your identity?
Yeah.
And that's actually exactly the question that their organization asked, right? Which is like, we're fighting for a revolution. Why are you thinking about identity? And it's a really scary question. And I think, to me, the answer to your question is freedom. If we were talking about freedom, economic freedom, right, or any type of freedom, all the different dimensions of freedom are interwoven. And so we don't get free at the same time that other people and parts of people aren't free, which is why it's not all about my gender, right, or my queerness. However, noticing the ways in which our liberatory impulses aren't encompassing and thinking about a really, really multifaceted definition of freedom is a loss. And so I think what I'm hoping is that people really think about freedom, and they think about what parts of them aren't free, and they think about what would be required to get together in difference, in assemblage, in disagreement, and fight for all kinds of different kinds of freedom. That's what I'm hoping for, is that contemplation, and maybe some tears.
Yeah.
Because the tears make space for that contemplation.
Anthony, what do you hope people take away from the Potluck?
I think with all maybe all of my work, I think that I'm connected to queer liberation and queer joy, and how that, how sort of living in your full authentic self, whatever your identity is, how that models for the audience. So I think Cesar wrote a piece that beautifully illustrates how to be who you are and then be who you are on purpose. So I think I would like for people to maybe leave and question whether are they being who they are on purpose, and how much further can they go in that direction.
How about for you, Barbara?
I just feel that it's so wonderfully not agitprop pushy or believe this and don't believe this. Thank God. It's kind of not political, and yet what's going on in the world that is so fraught and so divisive and so horrendous. To me, this is the antidote. This is a balm. This is a relief from that, because you see human beings who might be different from you, but they're the same. We are the same in so many ways, and we just put up walls and where there are no answers in the walls. So I just think it exudes this beautiful humanity.
The Potluck is produced by Soho Rep and Intar, is showing now at the Peter J. Sharp Theater on West 42nd Street through August 2nd. Tickets are available at sohorep.org. I've been speaking with playwright and composer Cesar Alvarez and Anthony Alfaro and Barbara Walsh. Thank you for coming to the studio.
Thank
you so
you.
much. Appreciate it.